Genesis begins with stories many of us know. The creation of humans, a garden, Cain and Abel. But when the story reaches chapter 6, something very strange happens. The sons of God take women as wives. And the Nephilim are born to them.
And Genesis barely explains either one. Who were these sons of God? And who were the Nephilim?
About the sons of God. One clue comes from Job 1. It says, the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And that scene is happening in heaven.
And you know what else comes to mind? Job 38. God is talking about when he created the earth, and he says, all the sons of God shouted for joy. Humans had not even been created yet, so these sons of God were already there.
Exactly. They were heavenly beings. And now Genesis 6 makes a lot more sense. Heavenly beings take human women as wives, and their children are the Nephilim.
And according to number 1333, the Nephilim were giants. Genesis describes them as powerful figures who became famous in the ancient world. But then Genesis moves on. It really does not tell us much more about the heavenly beings who did this.
And that is where First Enoch comes into the story. First Enoch is an ancient Jewish book. It is not scripture, but it shows us how the people, the ancient world, understood what happened in Genesis 6. It calls these rebellious heavenly beings the Watchers.
Watcher? I remember that name from Daniel. In Daniel 4, Nebuchadnezzar sees a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. So Watcher was already a name for a heavenly being.
Yes, and the Watcher in Daniel is serving God. He is not evil. First Enoch uses that same name for the heavenly beings who rebelled. It says the Watchers took human women, had giant children, and afterward they were bound and held for judgment.
Bound and held for judgment? Jude and Peter also speak about angels being held for judgment.
Yes, they do. Jude verse 6 talks about angels who left the place God had given them. And he says they are being kept in chains, under darkness, waiting for judgment.
And Jude knew the Enoch story. Later in the same letter, he actually quotes from First Enoch. Like you mentioned earlier, it does not make the book of Enoch scripture, but it does show its influence on the writings of the apostles.
That is correct. Another parallel I noticed was right after speaking about these angels in verse 7, Jude says, in a similar way, Sodom and Gomorrah. He is telling us the two stories belong together.
And when you go back to Genesis 19, you can see the connection. Two visitors come to Lot's house. Genesis tells us those visitors are angels. Later that night, the men of Sodom surround the house and demand that Lot send the visitors outside because they want to have sex with them.
And Jude uses an interesting phrase when he talks about what happened there. Some Bible's translations say they committed sexual immorality and went after other flesh or unnatural desire. But the idea behind the original term is actually pretty simple. It means they went after a different kind of flesh.
And now I see the parallel Jude is making. In Genesis 6, heavenly beings go after human women. In Sodom, humans go after heavenly beings.
Yes, exactly. The direction is reversed, but Jude links the two. He wants us to see the connection.
And Peter does something very similar, doesn't he?
He does. 2 Peter talks about angels who sinned and says they were kept in darkness for judgment. Then Peter immediately talks about Noah and the ancient world destroyed by the flood. And after that, Sodom and Gomorrah.
So Peter gives us angels who sinned, Noah, the flood, Sodom and Gomorrah. That is almost the same path Jude just took us down.
And there is another clue. Peter says angels, plural. He is talking about a group. We know the Bible talks about Satan's rebellion, but Peter is not describing one rebel here. He is talking about a group of angels who sinned and were imprisoned.
And where do we find a group of heavenly beings sinning in that ancient world before Noah?
Genesis 6, the sons of God. And now the pieces start coming together.
You know what I like about seeing all of this together? Genesis 6 does not feel like four random, strange verses anymore.
And there is a good lesson in that. When the Bible gives you something strange, do not just skip over it. Follow the names, follow the other passages, see where the biblical writers bring those ideas up again. Sometimes that is where the larger story starts to come into view.
And with the Watchers, there is still more to that story. Because First Enoch says the Nephilim were not the only thing their rebellion brought into the human world. They also brought knowledge humans were never supposed to have.
Yes, but that takes us into another part of the Watcher story entirely. If you want to keep exploring the supernatural narrative running through Scripture, get yourself a copy of Jonathan Lugo's The Bible You Thought You Knew. It follows these connections much deeper and shows how they fit into the larger biblical story. More information is found in the description below.